Welcome to the channel. We're excited to explore ideas that shaped Western civilization and the world in this series. Our goal is a family-friendly vibe, though sensitive topics might pop up. As such, viewer discretion is advised. When guest speakers join us, we'll ask them to keep in line with our standards, but we can't promise that. Our aim is to break down concepts clearly and concisely without oversimplifying, and focus on discussion of ideas, not necessarily the promotion of them. Satire, nuance, and devil's advocate moments might arise, so context matters. The channel and its team don't officially back any views that are discussed. We'll adapt as we go, and we'd love your civil, constructive input. Check descriptions and comments for info. Our goal, to be open-minded, evolving, and exploratory. Thrilled to have you here.
All right, welcome everyone. This is episode 1 in a new series we're trying to start that we are starting on read-alongs of various great works within the so-called conversation. And today, Caleb and I are beginning to read the first book in Plato's Republic, book 1 of Plato's Republic. And I guess as far as housekeeping goes, the translation that both of us are using is by Benjamin Jowett of the Dialogues.
Great. I guess let's just get right into it. Should we take turns just reading some chunks?
For sure.
All right, and then we can pause to discuss as we go and summarize ideas and make sure we understand what we're reading.
For sure. And before we begin, I just want to make sure everyone's aware when most of the time when it says I, it's from the perspective of Socrates, the narrator. But yeah, I can begin. So it says, I went down yesterday to the Piraeus with Glaucon, the son of Ariston, that I might offer up my prayers to the goddess, and also because I wanted to see in what manner they would celebrate the festival, which was a new thing. I was delighted with the processions of the inhabitants, but that of the Thracians was equally, if not more, beautiful. When we had finished our prayers and viewed the spectacle, that instant, we turned in the direction of the city, and at that instant, Polemarchus, the son of Cephalus, chanced to catch sight of us in the distance as we were starting on our way home, and told his servant to run and bid us to wait for him. The servant took hold of me by the cloak behind and said, Polemarchus desires you to wait. I turned around and asked him where his master was. There he is, said the youth, coming after you, if you will only wait. Certainly we will, said Glaucon, and in a few minutes Polemarchus appeared, and with him Adeimantus, Glaucon's brother, Niceratus, and the son of Nicias, and several others who had been at the procession. Polemarchus said to me, I perceive, Socrates, that you and your companion are already on your way to the city. You are not far wrong, I said. But do you see, he rejoined, how many we are? Of course. And are you stronger than all of these? For if not, you will have to remain where you are. May there not be alternative, I said, that we may persuade you to let us go. But can you persuade us if we refuse to listen to you? He said. Certainly not, replied Glaucon. Then we are not going to listen. Of that you may be assured.
That feels like modern politics. Adeimantus added, Has no one told you of the torch race on horseback in honor of the goddess, which will take place in the evening? With horses, I replied, that is a novelty. Will horsemen carry torches and pass them one to another during the race? Yes, said Polemarchus, and not only so, but a festival will be celebrated at night, which you certainly ought to see. Let us rise soon after supper and see this festival. There will be a gathering of young men, and we will have a good talk. Stay then, and do not be perverse. Glaucon said, I suppose, since you insist, that we must. Very good, I replied. Accordingly, we went with Polemarchus to his house, and there we found his brothers Lysias and Euthydemus, and with them Thrasymachus, the Chalcedonian, Charman, how would you say that?
Charmantides,
Charmantides?
the
Charmantides.
Aenean.
If ever there was a Greek Pokemon, that sounds like one. Charmantides, the Paeanian, and
I choose you.
Cleitophon, the son of Aristonomus. There, too, was Cephalus, the father of Polemarchus, whom I had not seen for a long time, and I thought him very much aged. He was seated on a cushioned chair, and had a garland on his head, for he had been sacrificing in the court, and there were some other chairs in the room arranged in a semicircle, upon which we sat down by him. He saluted me eagerly, and then he said, You don't come to see me, Socrates, as often as you ought. If I were still able to go and see you, I would not ask you to come to me. But at my age I can hardly get to the city, and therefore you should come oftener to the Piraeus. For let me tell you that the more the pleasures of the body fade away, the greater to me is the pleasure and charm of conversation. Do not then deny my request, but make our house your resort, and keep company with these young men. We are old friends, and you will be quite at home with us.
I replied, There's nothing for which my part I like better, Cephalus, than conversing with aged men, but for I regard them as travelers who have gone a journey which I too may have to go, and of whom I ought to inquire whether the way is smooth and easy, or rugged and difficult. And this is a question which I should like to ask of you, who have arrived at that time which the poets called the threshold of age. Is life harder towards the end, or what report do you give of it? I will tell you, Socrates, he said, what my feeling is. Men of my age flock together. We are birds of a feather, which I think is interesting that they use that uh, uh, phrase in this translation. Um, we are birds of a feather, as the old proverb says. And at our meetings, the tale of my acquaintance commonly is I cannot eat, I cannot drink. The pleasures of youth and love are fled away. There was a good time once, but now that is gone, and life is no longer life. Some complain of the sights we are which are put upon them by relations, and they will tell you sadly of how many evils the old age is the cause. But to me, Socrates, the complainers seem to blame that which is not really in fault. For if old age were the cause, I too being old, and every other old man would have felt as they do. But this is not my own experience, nor that of others whom I have known. How well I remember the aged poet Sophocles, when in an answer to the question, How does love suit with age, Sophocles? Are you still the old man you were? Peace, he replied. More gladly have I escaped the thing of which you speak. I feel as if I have escaped from a mad and furious master. His words have often occurred to my mind since, and they seem as good to me now as at the time when he uttered them. For certainly old age has a great sense of calm and freedom. When the passions relax their hold, then, as Sophocles says, we are freed from the grasp not of one mad master only, but of many. The truth is, Socrates, that these regrets and also the complaints about relations are to be attributed to the same cause, which is not old age, but men's characters and tempers. For he who is calm, of a calm and happy nature, will hardly feel the pressure of age, but to him who is of an opposite disposition, youth and age are equally a burden. I listened in admiration and wanting to draw him out, that he might go on. Yes, Cephalus, I said, but rather suspect that people in general are not convinced by you when you speak thus. They think that old age sits lightly upon you, not because of your happy disposition, but because you are rich, and wealth is well known to be a great comforter.
You are right, he replied. They are not convinced. And there is something in what they say, not, however, so much as they imagine. I might answer them as Themistocles answered the Cyprian, who was abusing him and saying that he was famous, not for his own merits, but because he was an Athenian. If you had been a native of my country, or I of yours, neither of us would have been famous. And to those who are not rich and are impatient of old age, the same reply may be made. For to the good poor man old age cannot be a light burden, nor can a bad rich man ever have peace with himself. May I ask, Cephalus, whether your fortune was for the most part inherited or acquired by you?
Acquired, Socrates. Do you want to know how much I acquired? In the art of making money, I have been midway between my father and grandfather. From my grandfather, whose name I bear, doubled and trebled the value of his patrimony, that which he inherited being much of what I possess now. But my father, Licinians, red- reduced the property below what it is at present, and I shall be satisfied if to leave these to my sons, not less, but a little more than I received. That is why I asked you the question, I replied, because I see that you are indifferent about money, which is a characteristic rather of those who have inherited their fortunes than of those who have acquired them. The makers of fortunes have a second love of money, as a creature or as a creation of their own, resembling affection of authors for their own poems or of parents for their children, besides that natural love of it for the sake of use and profit, which is common to them and all men. And hence they are nothing, oh, they are very bad company, for they can talk about nothing but their praises of wealth. That is true, he said. Yes, that is very true. But I may ask another question. What do you consider to be the greatest blessing which you have reaped from your wealth?
One, he said, of which I could not expect easily to convince others. For let me tell you, Socrates, that when a man thinks himself to be near death, fears and cares enter into his mind which he never had before. The tales of a world below and the punishment which is exacted there, of deeds done here, were once a laughing matter to him, but now he is tormented with the thought that they may be true, either from the weakness of age, or because he is now drawing nearer to that other place. He has a clearer view of these things. Suspicions and alarms crowd thickly upon him, and he begins to reflect and consider what wrongs he has done to others, and he will many a time, like a child, start up in his sleep for fear, and he is filled with dark forebodings. But to him who is conscious of no sin, sweet hope, as Pindar charmingly says, is the kind nurse of his age. Hope, he says, cherishes the soul of him who lives in justice and holiness, and is the nurse of his age and the companion of his journey. Hope which is mightiest to sway the restless soul of man. How admirable are his words, and the great blessing of riches, I do not say to every man, but to a good man, is that he has had no occasion to deceive or to defraud others, either intentionally or unintentionally. And when he departs to the world below, he is not in any apprehension about offerings due to the gods or debts which he owes to men. Now to this peace of mind the possession of wealth greatly contributes, and therefore I say that setting one thing against another, of the many advantages which wealth has to give, to a man of sense this is, in my opinion, the greatest. Hmm. So he asks, what's the greatest blessing from wealth? And he says, when you're near death, you worry about how you've lived your life, and riches help you to avoid situations of wronging others. Hmm.
I think it's interesting that his focus is on making sure that his posterity is well off, that he accounts well for the wealth that he's inherited, um, and the money that he
Mhm.
has made, uh, so that they can be as well off or more well off than he was, and are able to, like you were saying, uh, or not inherit, but receive comfort in the fact of wealth.
Mhm. Yeah. I also like how he said it earlier, that those who are indifferent about money often have inherited it. For those who are the makers of fortunes have a second love of money as a creation of their own. And then they could talk about nothing but it. And that was very, very well said.
Mm. It reminds me of that one scripture that says, which often gets misrepresented, that the love of money is the root of all evil. Uh,
Mhm.
which I think aspects of that sentiment are present in that reference that you just made, that those that like make of themselves apparently their own money seem to love the money for being money, and not so much as a tool, but as kind of a creation in and of itself, so to speak.
Yeah. I don't think it's necessarily wrong to love what you create so long as it's appropriately tempered. Like it shouldn't outweigh other things that you should love more.
Mm.
And I wonder if maybe the greater trouble of loving money comes from the first love of money. Money not as a necessarily creation of your own, like that you have acquired it, but money as a thing of power and pride that I think the love of money often is an issue not because you earned it, but because of how it is used and how you perceive yourself because you have it. Which, I mean, that's what I would think is the first love, he said. Because he said those who acquire money have that second love of money.
I didn't catch that. Thanks for pointing that out.
I think you're muted, or are you just really quiet?
Marco,
Hold on.
is this any better?
Yeah. I think it maybe cut off the quiet parts, but I think I can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna resume reading. Um,
Wait, actually,
Oh, for sure.
I want to talk a little bit more about the last part with, you know, what's the greatest blessing from wealth? And it sounds like he says, um, you worry about how you've lived your life, and wealth, I guess, allows you to maybe have less occasion to deceive or defraud others, and offerings to the gods and debts and oaths to men. It's like it allows you to, well, it makes me think of a saying that there's some quote that like evil spurs from like desperation and need. I don't remember the exact one, but it's basically like poverty and need and those sort of things are what drives evil. And I think that's kind of what he's trying to get at here. It's like when you have money, you don't have the desperation to do wrong by others, and you can do the good things that you need to, and you don't uh, get yourself in debt with others. And yeah, I don't know. Is that how you would read that?
Yeah, I would definitely say there's a strong aspect of the concept of the concept of justice in this. Uh, and I could just be rephrasing what or paraphrasing what you were saying, but I think it seems like he's saying something to the effect of having uh, having money enables you uh, to pay off debts and to be a positive force to others, um, which I think deals with uh, a concept in terms of like justice, where uh, you do good to those that do good to you. So, which I guess is sort of a quid pro quo kind of concept of how to go about dealings with others, um, which I think it, it is a great informant in how they conceive or perceive justice, so to speak.
Mm, yeah, I think I've heard that. Um,
You're
this
cutting out, Caleb.
writing with the in Plato's Republic. So, and I think I see justice
So
coming up in the next paragraph.
you're
So,
cutting
um,
out pretty bad, Caleb. What are you saying? Caleb?
I was just agreeing that I think. Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You're loud and clear now.
All right, one moment. I gotta adjust some stuff. You can keep reading if you want.
Okay, for sure. Anyways, he says, "Well said, Cephalus," I replied. "But as concerning justice, what is it? To speak the truth and to pay your debts? No more than this? And even to this there are no exceptions? Suppose that a friend, when he is in his right mind, has deposited arms with me, and he asks for them when he is not in the right mind. Ought I to give them back to him? No one would say that I ought or that I should be right in doing so, any more than they would say that I ought always to speak the truth, no one who is in to one who is in his condition. You are quite right, he replied. But then I said, speaking the truth and paying your debts is not a correct definition of justice. Quite correct, Socrates, if Simonides is to be believed. And Polemarchus interposing. I fear, said Cephalus, that I must go now, for I have to look after the sacrifices and hand over the argument to Polemarchus and the company. Is not Polemarchus your heir? I said. To be sure, he answered, and went away, laughing, to the sacrifices. Tell me then, O thou heir of the argument, what did Simonides say, and according to you truly say, about justice? He said that the repayment of debt is just. And in saying so, he appears to me to be right. I should be sorry to doubt the word of such a wise and inspired man. But his meaning, though probably clear to you, is the reverse of clear to me. For he certainly does not mean, as we were just now saying, that I ought to now return a deposit of arms or of anything else to one who asks for it when he is not in the right mind, in his right senses, and yet a deposit can be denied to be a debt.
True. Then when the person who asks me is not in his right mind, I am by no means to make the return? Certainly not. When Simonides said that the repayment of a debt was justice, he did not mean to include that case? Certainly not, for he thinks that a friend ought always to do good to a friend and never evil. You mean that the return of a deposit of gold, which is to the injury of the receiver, if the two parties are friends, is not the repayment of a debt? That is what you would imagine him to say? Yes. And are enemies also to receive what we owe to them? To be sure, he said, they are to receive what we owe them, and an enemy, as I take it, owes to an enemy that which is due or proper to him, that is to say, evil. Simonides, then, after the manner of poets, would seem to have spoken darkly of the nature of justice, for he really meant to say that justice is the giving to each man what is proper to him, and this he termed a debt. That must have been his meaning, he said. By heaven, I replied, and if we asked him what due or proper thing is given by medicine, and to whom, what answer do you think that he would make to us? He would surely reply that medicine gives drugs and meat and drink to human bodies. And what due or proper thing is given by cookery, and to what? Seasoning to food. And what is that which justice gives, and to whom? If Socrates, we are to be guided at all by the analogy of the preceding instances, then justice is the art which gives good to friends and evil to enemies.
That is his meaning then? I think so. Yeah, I think that's a pretty solid definition of justice, honestly. Um,
Hmm.
to give
So,
to people their debts, to
to give what is owed
speak
to them,
to speak vaguely. Yeah.
basically to give what they deserve.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems pretty solid. I think I got lost a little bit in this last part. So he says, what is the proper thing given by medicine? Medicine gives drugs and meat and drink to human bodies. Cookery. So, I don't. It sounds more like with the medicine and food. Well, it's like medicine is what is given or what gives, as they say, seem to phrase it.
Hmm.
And then seasoning, cookery gives seasoning to food. I just think the syntax of the sentence is a little unfamiliar, so I'm not quite sure what they're getting at yet.
Yeah, and that could just be a quirk of the translation. Um, I'd like to have a conversation one of these times about whether it's better to read the original language of a thing, like for this, for example, ancient Greek, because like you were
Probably is
saying,
for understanding.
the syntax is a little hard to understand. But I think you kind of questioned the bit about medicine, and I wonder if a different interpretation or a potentially better but different interpretation of uh, medicine when medicine is given the intended result. Um, so, like going back to this, or another example of medicine, but you uh, gave me this thought experiment a couple months back of how do you attack a tumor and not damage any good
Mm,
tissue in some part of the body. And
yep.
I wonder if that could be a beneficial way of or lens to look at the medicine bit at least of like what is the intended purpose of the medicine and then like what is its result kind of a thing. Would you say that's a appropriate way to look at it or a
I
useful way
think
to look at it?
so with our modern English use of the word medicine. I'm wondering, well, because in English, in modern general use, we think of medicine, well, we think of medicine as something that is meant to help, and we think of drugs as something that can have an influence upon the body that can either be used as medicine or it can be something problematic. Um, but we sometimes, I think, use the words kind of interchangeably, and I'm wondering what the words that were translated as medicine and drugs in this case meant in the original language, like whether they had the connotations of something as a treatment, something that is meant to be good, or something that could be good or bad, or like I'm wondering what might be lost in translation.
For sure. Um, I'll add a note of the timestamp of when we said that so that I can look it up and put it in post.
Gonna look up the original Greek or something.
Yeah,
Oh,
like
alrighty,
splice it in post.
nice. All right, well, I guess we can keep moving on, and hopefully we'll figure it out more as we go.
Yeah, do you know what or I kind of lost where we left off. Do you remember where we
Oh,
left off?
that is his meaning then? I think so. Right after, um, justice is the art which gives good to friends and evil to enemies.
Hmm. And their use of the word art, I think, is interesting. We've kind of talked about that before, like the difference between an art and a science, which I think in that context, the connotation of the word is the same in both contexts. But
What would you say is the difference, just as a refresher?
between an art and a science,
Yeah.
um, a science is something that is like objectively true. Like there's fusion, um, there's fusion happening in stars, and that's why they're able to produce heat and stuff. Or water is two hydrogens and one oxygen, where an art is something more subjective.
Like a matter
Like
of judgment.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
something where it's more maybe qualitative.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And a matter of
Yeah.
taste, so to speak.
The justice is an art which gives good to friends and evil to enemies. Yeah.
Or maybe a more proper definition might be something of um, an art doesn't necessarily have a singular correct answer, where
Mhm.
in
At least not
sciences,
one that's known.
true, true, uh, where like in the science, it's more universally accepted certain answers.
Yeah.
Like water is
Okay.
H2O or sugar is C6H12O6. 2 plus 2 equals 4.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I like that definition of justice then. Let's see how they continue with it.
I
That is
think
his
so.
meaning then? I think
I think
so.
so.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I was just uh, saying I think so. I was just being a goober.
And who is best able to do good to his friends and evil to his enemies in time of sickness? The physician. Or when they are on a voyage amid the perils of the sea? The pilot. And in what sort of actions, or with a view to what result, is the just man most able to do harm to his enemy and good to his friend? In going to war against the one and in making alliances with the other.
But when a man is well, my dear Polemarchus, there is no need of a physician? No. And he who is not on a voyage has no need of a pilot? No. Then, in a time of peace, justice will be of no use? I am very far from thinking so. You think that justice may be of use in peace as well as war? As in war? Yes. Like husbandry for the acquisition of corn? Yes. Or like shoemaking for the acquisition of shoes? That is what you mean? Yes. And what similar use or power of acquisition has justice in time of peace? In contracts, Socrates, justice is of use. And by contracts, you mean partnerships? Exactly. But this is But is the just man or the skillful player a more useful and better partner at a game of draughts? The skillful player. And in the laying of bricks and stones, is the just man a more useful or better partner than the builder? Quite the reverse. Then, in what sort of partnership is the just man a better partner than the harp player? As in playing the harp player is certainly a better partner than the just man. In a money partnership, yes. Uh, Polemarchus, but surely not in the use of money. For you do not want a just man to be your counselor in the purchase or sale of a horse. A man who is knowing about horses would certainly be better for that, would he not? Certainly. And when you want to buy a ship, the shipwright or the pilot would be better. True. Then what is the joint use of silver or gold, in which the just man is to be preferred? When you want to deposit to be kept safely. You mean the money is not wanted, but allowed to lie? Precisely. That is to say, justice is useful when money is useless. That's the inference. And when you and when you want to keep a pruning hook safe, then justice is useful to the individual and to the state. But when you want to use it, then the art of the vine dresser, clearly. And when you want to keep a shield or a lyre and not use them, you would say that justice is useful. But when you want to use them and the art of the soldier or of the musician, certainly. And so, of all of the other things, justice is useful, and when they are useless, and useless when they are useful. That is the inference. Then justice is not good for much. But let us consider a further point. Is he who can best strike a blow in a boxing match or in any kind of fighting the best able to ward off a blow? Certainly. And he who is most skillful in preventing or escaping from a disease is best able to create one? True. That's an interesting use of the word. I'm going to have to look at
Yeah.
that in post as well. True,
Like
he
those
said.
who can avoid disease can create sickness.
Yeah, that's a interesting. Uh, and
Like,
he who,
did they have a lot of medicine doctors like going around making people sick? Or at least prominently enough known to be able to have the knowledge to make people sick or something.
yeah, I think kind of potentially. I'm doing a lot of hedging here. Um, I'm doing a lot of hedging here, but I wonder if potentially the thing that he's getting at is like somebody who is familiar with the subject is able to leverage it for good or evil, so to speak.
Mm, yeah, I think that's maybe where he's going with it. I also think they're kind of creating a false like a false dilemma, and they're
Oh,
maybe comparing two things that aren't very well compared, because he's talking about a just man, which is a matter of morals and ethics, and then he's talking about all these occupations. And it's like, oh, it's better to have expertise than to be just. Um, because in this kind of narrow uh discussion that they're having, justice is only good for the trustworthiness of holding on to something. When, he could say, well, which is better, a just man or a man who has a strong safe and knows how to you know knows how to reliably store and defend things, which is kind of the the main role of the just man in this conversation. So I don't know. I think it's interesting they're maybe conflating, well, not conflating, but creating a false distinction between, is it better to be competent or to be just? And the answer being in, logical terms, for necessity, the competent man, at the exclusion of being a just man. So I think that's kind of interesting.
yeah. A another aphorism comes to mind. Like it's better to have one bird in in the hand is worth two in the bush. Are you familiar with that one?
Yeah,
Uh, in the
like
sense
it,
of like, is it better to like possess something than
have an
to like,
opportunity.
yeah. Would you say that that's an inappropriate appropriate mention?
Um, I don't know. Yeah, it's like that aphorism's basically saying it's better to have something than an opportunity, even if the opportunity is greater. And I guess they're saying it's better to have competence than to be just.
Which I wonder if
Maybe.
this discussion that uh, Socrates is having is more in terms of like usefulness or like pragmatics.
Uh,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
because like he was
I mean, yeah,
saying, he was talking about how um, if you're not using a shield, or it's more important to make sure that that shield is like accounted for and uh, not able to be stolen when it's not useful to you.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I mean, they have used the word useful a lot, and I think I don't think I think they're not so blindly led in a conversation that they wouldn't realize to say if they were asked that obviously it is good for a man to be just and trustworthy in any of these occupations in addition to being competent.
yeah, which I hope that they eventually make that assertion
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah. Should we let's finish this arc of the conversation and finish their thought.
For sure. Sounds good.
And he is the best guard of a camp who is best able to steal a march upon the enemy. Certainly. Then he who is a good keeper of anything is also a good thief. That, I suppose, is to be inferred. I don't know if I agree with, but. Then if the just man is good at keeping money, he is good at stealing it. That is implied in the argument. Then
Which
after.
sorry to hop in here, but you were saying that you didn't necessarily agree with the good keeper being a good thief. Is that
Yeah.
correct? I I would agree with his assertion because there's a bit in Sun Tzu's Art of War that talks about having to be familiar with the enemy to be able to ward them off. And so I would say a similar principle is at play where if you want to protect against a thief, you need to know how the thief works in order
Yeah.
to prevent the thief from thieving. Using that word so
Yeah.
many times feels weird, but do you follow?
Mm-hmm. I think I think in this section the gist of his style of argument is that if you're good at defense, you're good at offense. And I think what is more true and what the art of war part taps into is if you're good at offense, you're good at defense. Because if you're good at offense, then you know what you need to defend against. But if you're good at defense, I don't know that you necessarily have the same skill set that you need for offense. So maybe I would say offense, the knowledge of good offense yields knowledge for good defense. But in this line of reasoning, he's saying that the skill of a good defense is the skill of a good offense, which I would disagree with. Like, is the best guard of a camp, like, is the best guard of a camp the best for marching against the enemy? Like, well, those are different skills. As a guard, you're not marching all the time. I mean, obviously back then, I'm sure they would have good, you know, good physique and endurance and stamina and stuff, but like that's a different role than marching. And key is being a good keeper, meaning being a good thief. Like, well, no, that's those are really different skills, different things. So, um,
Okay, that's
but
fair.
yeah,
That's
but
fair.
but they're exploring an argument. So I guess let's see where it goes. So, suppose it's true. Suppose a just man is good at keeping money. He's good at stealing it too. Then, after all, the just man has turned out to be a thief. That's also interesting. He implies being good at stealing means that you are a thief. Yeah, so a little jump there too. And this is a lesson which I suspect you must have learnt out of Homer, for he, speaking of Autolycus, the maternal grandfather of Odysseus, who is a favorite of his, affirms that he was excellent above all men in theft and perjury.
That seems like
And
a
so,
bit of a jump.
yeah, that's interesting. And okay, and this is Autolycus. So this is the grandfather of Odysseus, was excellent in theft and perjury. And so you and Homer and Simonides are agreed that justice is an art of theft, to be practiced, however, for the good of friends and for the harm of enemies. That was
Whoa.
what you were saying?
That's
That
crazy.
sounds so manipulative. No, certainly not that, though I do not now know what I did say. It's like, no, I don't know what I said now.
But
Poor
I
guy.
still stand by the latter words.
Well, there is another question. By friends and enemies, do we mean those who are so really or only in seeming? Oh, surely, he said, a man may be expected to love those whom he thinks good and to hate those whom he thinks evil. Yes, but do not persons often err about good and evil? Many who are not good seem to be so, and conversely. That is true. Then to them the good will be enemies, and the evil will be their friends? True. And in that case, they will be right in doing good to the evil and evil to the good? Clearly. So that's interesting. He's now measuring justice in terms of their perspective. According to their perspective, yeah, well, he's talking about whether or not they're good and evil objectively, and how justice is being measured is in terms of the person's perspective, which I think is the right way to do it, because at least in terms of moral issues, that people do justly when they're doing that which they believe to be just. But I don't know. That's a big discussion we could have too. But the good are just and would not do an injustice? True. Then, according to your argument, it is just to injure those who do no wrong? Nay, Socrates, the doctrine is immoral. Then I suppose that we ought to do good to the just and harm to the unjust. I like that better. But see the consequence. Many a man who is ignorant of human nature has friends who are bad friends, and in that case he ought to do harm to them. But he has good enemies whom he ought to benefit. But if so, we shall be saying the very opposite of that which we affirmed to be the meaning of Simonides. Very true, he said, and I think that we had better correct an error into which we seem to have fallen in the use of the words friend and enemy. What was the error, Polemarchus? I asked. We assumed that he is a friend who seems to be, or who is thought good. And how is the error to be corrected? We should rather say that he is a friend who is, as well as seems, good. And he who seems only, and is not good, only seems to be, and is not, a friend. And of an enemy the same may be said. You would argue that the good are our friends, and the bad our enemies? Yes. And instead of saying simply as we did at first, that it is just to do good to our friends and harm to our enemies, we should further say it is just to do good to our friends when they are good, and harm to our enemies when they are evil. Yes, that appears to me to be the truth. I got the better line of reasoning. But ought the just to injure any one at all? Undoubtedly he ought to injure those who are both wicked and his enemies. When horses are injured, are they improved or deteriorated? The latter. Deteriorated, that is to say, in the good qualities of horses, not of dogs. Yes, of horses. And dogs are deteriorated in the good qualities of dogs, and not of horses? Of course. And will not men who are injured be deteriorated in that which is the proper virtue of man? Certainly. And that human virtue is justice? To be sure. Huh. So they're talking about injuring as deteriorating the good qualities, but that injury and deterioration is not just like a physical wronging, but targeting the proper virtue of man, which is justice. So now he's spinned it to say that injuring people deteriorates their justice. I believe. So that's
Yeah, I would more generalize it to encompass virtue generally, but yeah, I would say that's accurate as to what he's saying.
Mhm.
Not necessarily accurate as to what it is, but that is what he
Yeah,
said. I would agree.
yeah. I think that yeah. So the human justice is virtue, to be sure. Then men who are injured are of necessity made unjust. That is the result. But can the musician by his art make men unmusical? Certainly not. Or the horseman by his art make them bad horsemen? Impossible. And can the just by justice make men unjust? Or speaking generally, can the good by virtue make them bad? Assuredly not. Any more than heat can produce cold? It cannot. Or drought moisture? Certainly not. Nor can the good harm any one. Impossible. And the just is the good? Certainly. Then to injure a friend or anyone else is not the act of a just man, but of the opposite, who is the unjust. I think that what you say is quite true, Socrates. Then if a man says that justice consists in the repayment of debts, and that good is the debt which a just man owes to his friends, and evil the debt which he owes to his enemies, to say this is not wise, for it is not true if, as has been clearly shown, the injuring of another can be in no case just. Hmm. I agree with you, said Polemarchus. Then you and I are prepared to take up arms against anyone who attributes such a saying to Simonides or Bias or Pittacus, or any other wise man or seer? I am quite ready to do battle at your side, he said. I love that. So
I
he's
think
like, what
that's
do you think? Oh, this stuff. Ah, so then you're wrong. And anyone who's wrong, we should do battle with. Yeah!
I think that's a pretty solid place to stop off at, because he kind of changes train of thought after that. But yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like to
Wow.
continue this conversation. I think it's interesting that they sort of generalized injury, which I made a note of translating. I don't know if in the recording you'll have seen it in post already, but I wonder what he means by that kind of a thing. That injuring or deteriorates virtue, or the qualities of the good qualities of a dog or a horse or a man, uh,
Mhm. Like
that
maybe instead of,
virtue justice.
yeah, like maybe instead of physical injury, like we would just say in English, like usually, maybe injury is translated from a word that's a little more general. Like it could include insults or like attacks to one's character or like a social injuries, like an ability, influence someone's power or influence or status. Like, being canceled would be an injury in their use of the word, maybe. Like, I don't know, maybe something like that.
Maybe. And again, I'll have to, or one of us will have to look up what the definition is to be put in post. But yeah, I think this has been I've had fun. Uh,
Yeah, this is cool.
but yeah, tune in next time when we pick up book 1 of Plato's Republic. And with that, see you next time.
Thanks for coming.